Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night, depending on where you are in the world. Thanks for joining this episode of DevCentral Connects. I'm John Wagnon, Jason Rahm, your DevCentral community. We are happy to be here with everyone and happy to connect with you. As always, we are streaming to YouTube and LinkedIn and Periscope, and we'll interact with all of you. If you've got any questions or comments, you can always type them there in the comment section, and we'll interact with you live. So Pasilva, we see you out there, man, my man. It's going to be good today with the man, the myth, the legend, Kevin Stewart. Will be on in just a couple of minutes. So he is the SSL guru.
He's calling her K-Stew. I thought that was the girl from Twilight. Isn't that?
So what now?
He's calling her K-Stew. Isn't that the girl from Twilight?
Yeah. I think that's Kristen Stewart, not Kevin Stewart. I don't know if there's a relation. Maybe we'll find out. And then Parveen, it's great to see you out there. So hello to you as well. Daryl and Boo. Daryl and Boo are, I think, quickly becoming YouTube sensations, viral, YouTubers where the whole world knows Daryl and Boo. And rightfully so. They totally should. Those guys are awesome. So it's great to see you out there. So Jason, I thought to start off this one, we were talking about gardening just a second ago, and it makes me wonder, what is your favorite garden, either vegetable or fruit? Something that you've either grown or you just enjoy the fruits, as it were, of the garden.
I have grown tomatoes and cucumbers and some various different things, but growing up it was always tomatoes, because we'd get those big Brandywine or the beefsteak tomatoes, and they're really thick and meaty, and just a whole summer of tomato sandwiches. It's pretty much all they ate all day long.
Okay, so when you do a tomato sandwich, do you just do the bread and the tomato? What else is on that sandwich?
Mix it up between a little bit of mayonnaise, a little bit of ketchup, not together, but one or the other. This is not a Big Mac. It does not need both.
Yeah, exactly. Do you put ketchup on your tomato sandwich?
I do.
Because I'm getting a little, I don't know, is that kind of some whatever? I don't know what that is.
Some crossing of the streams, That's...
Does the tomato look at the ketchup and think, wait a minute, what just happened here? So good stuff.
Reminds me of that joke where the mama tomato goes, her baby tomatoes falling behind, and she, goes back, stomps on her, and says, ketchup.
Ketchup. But
probably butchered that joke.
No. I think we all followed along. It's a great dad joke, and it's a great joke in general. Well, good stuff, man. I was thinking about, for me, I've never grown one of these, but my favorites, and especially in the summertime, is watermelon.
Back to watermelon.
And man, exactly.
Without salt.
Everything comes back to watermelon. That's right. So anyway, it's good stuff. Good stuff. Like I said, I've never grown one, but a cold, sweet watermelon on a hot summer day, you just can't beat it. Yeah, absolutely. It's fantastic.
Speaking of melons, my daughter, actually, she had a cantaloupe or a honeydew earlier this year. Maybe it was, I don't know, May timeframe. Yeah. And she, when she was done eating it, she's like, I took a seed, threw it I've got a planter box out on my deck, and she threw it in the planter box, and it took off, and she's got a melon about this size. And I thought that most of the stuff you get commercially, those seeds are, they don't actually grow anything. But
as it turns out, they do.
True.
Seeds actually work. It's just like Jack and the Beanstalk. Are you going to have a thing going on one of these days?
I hope not.
Who knows, man?
I don't think my deck could support the weight. I got to replace my deck.
Yeah.
So that'd be no good.
Good times, man. Good times. Well, yeah, gardening, it's always a fun time. Daryl and Boo, catch up on a tomato sandwich. It's so meta. Love it. And well, good stuff, man. Well, hey, today we are joined by probably the biggest SSL security expert on the entire planet, not just F5, but this guy lives and breathes and snacks on, SSL encryption. When he's hungry, he's like, hey, let me just get a little piece of TLS and take a bite out of it. So anyway, we have Mr. Kevin Stewart, Senior Security Architect, Solution Architect for Security, joining us today to talk about SSL Orchestrator. So with that, we will welcome Mr. Kevin. Kevin Stewart. Kevin Stewart, the SSL Orchestrator, SSL expert, man. Thanks for being here with us today on DevCentral Connects. It's good to see you, man.
Or henceforth, Case 2.
Yeah.
No relation to Kristen. Yeah.
No relation to Kristen. Yeah. We'll leave it up to the viewers to decide, is that a good thing or a bad thing? We won't get into the, Team Edward or team, whatever with the Twilight stuff. So
team Glitter, right?
Yeah. So for the community at large, back in 2012, we went to a new platform back then, and at that time, Aaron Julio in the community was the points leader in the community. And I don't know if Kevin, you set some kind of a insane goal to just really take Aaron to the mat and smash him through the ground like Scarlet Witch did to Vision. But man, you just came out of the gate screaming on that new platform. I don't think anybody's going to touch you on points.
Yeah. It was my goal in life to destroy Aaron. Yeah.
That's right. Well, destroy you did.
Yes, you did.
And well. So good stuff, man. Hey, we had one comment from Daniel. He's got this super important question for you, Kevin. So why Johnny Bravo?
Well, yeah. So right out of high school, I was heavy into lifting. So you can't really tell now, but I kind of looked like Johnny Bravo back in the day with the big bouffant hair and big upper and small lower.
Hey, every day is chest day, right?
Every day was chest and arms day. Yeah.
Every day is chest and arms. Love it. Get some shoulders in there. That's awesome, man. Back and by every day.
That's
Good
right.
to go. Awesome, man.
It was the whole Elvis thing. So
yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Well, good stuff. Well, hey, on behalf of DevCentral community, I know Jason said, you've answered a million different questions and helped people out along the way. So more than just, I know we'll talk SSL Orchestrator today, but thanks for being there for the community and helping out. I don't even know. You probably can't even count how many people. You'll never know how many you've helped. So it's been really cool.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Awesome, man.
Yeah, the great thing about doing it in a public forum like DevCentral is you don't just help the person that you're helping there. You're paying it forward to all the people who come behind looking for the same answer. So that's great.
Yeah, I know just to that end, really quick, one of the most common questions we pull stats like weekly, monthly off of DevCentral, and one of the most popular questions is still some iRule kind of stuff, just some simple redirection stuff, and it was these kind of questions are posted often, but it's been 6-7 years ago. And right there, Kevin Stewart answers are still popping up to this day. So
yep,
it lives on forever in perpetuity. So good to go.
Yeah.
Legacy established.
That's right.
All right. So today we're here to talk about SSL Orchestrator. So what is it and why does it exist?
Good question. So basic premise is, well, I'll take you back to 2013, 2014 timeframe. Edward Snowden made some revelations about our security, our privacy in the internet community. This was back in a time when most of the traffic that we did was unencrypted. It was HTTP. It was unencrypted email. Edward Snowden made some revelations that about our privacy. Shortly after the browsers of the world, started doing more and more encryption. You had regulations and all sorts of laws that come from that. And here we are, fast forward in 2019, 2020, and now we're close to 80, 85, 90% encryption, right? Mm-hmm. For everything, it's all email, it's all web traffic, it's all voice and video, it's everything is encrypted. And that's the side effect of that, of course, yes, there's more privacy, but there's, for all the privacy, there is very little visibility, right? So you can't protect against what you can't see, right? And so your traditional security stack just really doesn't do a good job of decrypting and inspecting, and even when they do, they'll create a lot of latency, right? And it becomes a very brittle solution. So we started the SSL Orchestrator. It was SSL Intercept at the time, early on, a project for Department of Defense. And that grew into SSL Orchestrator to effectively decrypt and allow inspection to the set of security stacks, security devices in your security stack. to provide that visibility that they lose for the extra encryption that's going on.
I've heard some stories of some companies that say, hey, we've got, everything's encrypted, and maybe if I have to move away from RSA and move on to like Diffie-Hellman or perfect forward ciphers, that kind of stuff, then I just don't look at it anymore. I don't know if you've seen some of that, like, hey, we just bypass certain security stuff, or
but that's really the point, right? So, if we're talking about, 80-90% of the traffic flowing through your environment is encrypted, potentially 100% for maybe inbound traffic, then what are your security tools doing? Clearly, you have to have security tools. Malware is everywhere, right? It's ubiquitous. It's coming through in innocuous streams. It's coming through in HTML. It's coming through docs. It's coming through JavaScript and Java. If you are not decrypting, if you're not inspecting, or if you're not inspecting that traffic with your security stack, what is your security stack doing? Right? So it's due diligence, right?
Yeah, I can tell you what it's doing if you're not inspecting. It's doing nothing. If you're not inspecting anything,
that's exactly
paid a lot of money for a big brick to sit there, kind of thing. So,
well, and even outbound, we were talking offline with Peter. I'm sure you're in the chat still. You threw out the stat last week when we were talking something about the insider threats are down like significantly, because obviously it's in COVID, nobody's in the office. And so, insider threats are like crazy down. And you think about all the traffic that's going outbound, you also can't see that and need to be able to.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, there's a lot of that. So when we talk about what used to be SSL Intercept, now SSL Orchestrator, and you look at other visibility type products, what are some of the things that set SSLO apart, or maybe what's different about it compared to some of these others?
Good question. I actually have a few slides that I would like to show you. If you could bring up slide number 1. Yeah.
Oh, fantastic! Look at that.
So if you think about the current security stack, and we all do this, right? So it's the traffic leaves your computer and it hits a device like a router, gateway, whatever. It hits a web gateway, and from web gateway it goes to a DLP, and from the DLP it goes to an IDS, an IPS, AV device, sandbox, and then it hits the firewall and goes out. That's what we call a daisy chain, right? It leaves one box, it goes to the next. It leaves that box, goes to the next, and goes on its way out. And so we've always had that scalability problem with this. We all deal with that. Typically, what people will do is they'll have a big enough box to handle all the traffic, and if they have to scale out, then they have to have load balancing instances along the way. But really, when you add encryption to this, you're adding a lot of latency, right? Decrypt and re-encrypt, decrypt, re-encrypt along the way, plus all the brittleness that goes along with that. And so the SSL Orchestrator is fundamentally a different paradigm. It's not really as much about the SSL piece of it, the TLS pieces of it, as it is the orchestration piece. So go to slide number 2. So what we basically do is we turn that daisy chain paradigm on its head, and we look at this from a traffic orchestration perspective. The big IP product is a full proxy. It's always been a full proxy, and we take advantage of that full proxy capability to do this inspection. Obviously, we decrypt at the front door, and we re-encrypt at the back door in either direction. But what we're doing in the middle is this intense dynamic orchestration. So we can look at the traffic as it's coming in, and we can make intelligent decisions where it's coming from, where it's going, port protocol, who it is, where what domain groups they're in, whatever. And then we can steer that traffic to different security devices intelligently, right? So we can create these concepts called service chains, which are essentially just ordered list of services, FireEyes, Palos, Gigamons, Blue Coats, whatever. And we can, by definition of a traffic rule, we can steer that traffic to different sets of security devices. And in doing so, we're independently addressing each of these components, allowing you to load balance and scale those devices independently. So I'll give you an example. Your FireEyes, for example, they really care most about HTTP traffic, where they're going to explode that stuff, but they don't care so much about LDAP and SSH and other things. In a traditional daisy chain, that device has to support all of the traffic outbound, regardless of whether it looks at it. And so in this dynamic service chain model, we can send traffic around a device that doesn't care about it. So that device can then scale up and down independent of the total throughput requirement. If your Palos are seeing everything, then you can scale those out independent of the FireEyes and the Gigamons and the Blue Coats and other things. Another really cool aspect of this, though, is that because we're an orchestration point, it makes it super, super easy to insert and remove security products into the security stack without incurring any downtime. And I think that is far and above what I think most people find the most compelling about the SSL Orchestrator. It's really the orchestration of traffic in and around the security stack that's really unique to our product.
Yeah, no, that's a huge thing. Like you said, the downtime, the complexity of, taking out, if I had to upgrade my firewall or whatever, there's all of the maintenance window, all that stuff, it just takes forever.
Right.
But now, I mean, it sounds like with this, you can just you can pop it out and everybody else is still doing their thing, all the other security devices, and then you plug it back in once you've tested it or whatever it is you got to do, right? So.
Yeah. And we're all sort of, I think a lot of us are worried about what to do with our Broadcom boxes now that they're kind of going away maybe, and so there's becomes this evolution of like, what do we do now? Like, do we look at other products? Do we look at other vendors? And this whole architecture makes it very easy to evaluate a product without having to necessarily stand up a lab, do test traffic or incur any really the downtime, right? You just set up you set up another vendor's proxy server in as a device in the SSL Orchestrator. You create a set of security rules that say just my traffic goes through here, decrypt, send it to this product, make sure it works, and then when you're comfortable with it and you've got approval, just promote it into the production chain and nobody knows.
Beautiful. Yeah. What a simple way to do it, compared to what you used to have to do, right? Or what some people are doing now without SSL Orchestrator.
Absolutely.
So it's awesome.
Well, and it's always been in the name, SSL Orchestrator, but sometimes you kind of blow past the names and think, okay, it's just another SSL and it's going to offload some stuff. But it's really compelling because not just the fact that you can selectively choose the types of service that you're going to have by protocol, but also within a protocol, you can also select depending on the category of traffic coming in, correct?
Right.
Yeah. Awesome.
So how does that, you talked about scaling out the services themselves. How do you scale an individual service? So you talked about the one box, you have the big box that has to handle all the traffic in a daisy chain. How does that come into play with something like SSL Orchestrator?
Yeah. So like I said, in this dynamic service chain model, all the devices or all the services are addressed independently. So the SSL Orchestrator talking to the Palo or the Gigamon is a separate data channel than the one talking to the FireEye. And so again, because we're a full proxy architecture, we'll treat those like we would any other web server. We can load balance them. We can actively or passively monitor them. We can go around them if they fail. And likewise, because it's its own load balance pool, we can simply add more resources to that pool like we do with anything else.
Yeah. And I guess on your business's security policy, you can go around it, or, hey, this service is down. Absolutely, I'm not going to pass traffic until this one's restored.
Absolutely. And some people will say, maybe the FireEye goes down, but I still want traffic to go out. That's just your policy. But if your firewall is inside the security stack and it goes down, you probably don't want traffic to fall to keep going, right?
Right. Exactly. So, but you can make that decision, right?
You can totally make that decision, yeah.
Yeah. Hey, so really quick on the classification, I find that fascinating. So as traffic comes in, as a request comes in, the SSLO is going to classify that traffic, and then it's going to send it through, whatever that dynamic chaining or whatever it is, and so on those different categories, is that something that you can set up as the owner of the SSLO, or can you rely on the the F5 version of, like you mentioned, finance right there? Does F5 say, hey, we've already figured out all the finance sites, so you don't have to like go through and type them all in or whatever?
There's a subscription model for a URL filtering system underneath the big IP. We get our data from WebSense, ForcePoint, for that. And then, of course, for IPI, we get from other resources data feeds. And so the classifications can be, source destination IP, port, in some cases protocol, user identity, group membership, but also these subscriptions. So we can look at the FQDN, the server name or the IP address, and we can query those data feeds and say, hey, this is categorized as financial based on the URL or the IP, or this is a Tor endpoint, or this is a gambling site or whatever. And so we can make active decisions on a per packet level based on all of these different criteria.
Gotcha. All right. Yeah, super cool.
So what do deployments look like with SSLO?
It's a great question, and that's again, it all falls back to that Swiss Army knife proxy architecture. Obviously, we handle both inbound and outbound traffic, and so if you're looking at outbound traffic, we have this concept called a topology, and really a topology is the way traffic is consumed. And you could have like multiple topologies, stacked up inside of a single SSL orchestrator. So you could have outbound transparent proxy like an L3 routed hop. You could have outbound explicit proxies. You could have inbound reverse proxy, a typical LTM with a service chain. You can attach security policies to existing LTM applications. You can also run this thing in an L2 mode, so you can do bump in the wire on the SSL orchestrator, both inbound and outbound.
Okay.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. I know. I don't know if we want to pop it up there, but is it Doge Fernando had a question about the L2 stuff and the L2 environment. Devices above I-5800 have virtual wire, but all others you can set up using VLAN groups. What are the gain and lose between virtual wire and VLAN groups?
Yeah, so what he's saying is that the 5800 platforms have basically have a Broadcom chip in them that allows us to do this thing called virtual wire. Virtual wire allows the big IP to act as a full layer 2 bump in the wire. That chipset is not available in lower platforms, VCMP, VEs, and below the 5800, but you can still do this thing with VLAN groups and transparent next hop to effectively do the same thing in a software way. What you'll lose by doing the software is the inability to essentially copy all of the L2 headers. Virtual wire copies everything, all the L2 headers from one side to the other, whereas the software L2 will only copy the MAC address from one side to the other. So you can't do like VLAN tagging through it, or LACP or anything like that, with a software vWire or software L2.
Super cool. Yeah. Awesome, man. Hopefully that helps. I hope I'm saying your name right, Doge or Dodge Fernando. Mr. Fernando. Awesome. Yeah, thanks for the question.
So when you're talking about, the types of devices that are supported and the way they're deployed, what would be a reason you would support something like L2 in 2020?
Well, so we want to talk about both the types of topologies and the types of services, right? So they're different things. The topology, how you configure SSL Orchestrator to listen on the wire, is completely and totally independent of the services that you attach. And this is another competitive differentiator, right? So if you look at other products, like, I won't name names, but you look at other products that do like pure L2, they're really stuck at layer 2 and below, right? So if they're a layer 2, a bump in the wire deployment, they're only going to support layer 2 devices attached to them. That's pretty much universal for all the vendors out there. But because of our full proxy, we can do that L2, but we can also do L3. We can do explicit proxy, full layer 7, and we can support a diverse set of security products attached to what we call the service chain, independent of the topology. So those service types are obviously we can do passive devices like Gigamons. We can do layer 2 devices like Cisco FTDs and FireEyes. We can do layer 3 devices like Palos and other IDSs. Layer 4 devices or layer 4 through 7 devices like ProxySG or Cisco WSA or ForcePoint Secure Web Gateway or whatever, McAfee Web Gateway. And you can also support ICAP devices like Digital Guardian, McAfee DLP, and those things. And again, it's completely and totally independent of the topology. So I could literally have the F5 like SSL Orchestrator running in a vWire L2 mode, and I could still have a proxy server or an ICAP server sitting in the service chain that is completely and totally opaque to the inbound outbound traffic.
Yeah. And so at a layman's term, what you're talking about is your, intended source and destination path. It can be whatever it needs to be. And that's independent of your inspection zone topology.
Exactly. Right? We don't munge the source or destination IPs at all as it goes through. So true source and true destination will flow all the way through the security stack, irrespective of the type of device plugged in.
Okay.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. Actually, I went through your very detailed SSLO labs yesterday. We had at a 5 quarterly, we get a zoom out day where we get to just work on something that betters ourselves, that isn't necessarily directly related to what we do. And my yesterday was to go through the SSLO labs, and as I got into those, and it's like, mind blowing how much there is from a feature perspective in there, but also just kind of trying to keep the client to server data path in your mind straight between what's going on in your inspection zones. And so it's a little bit of a learning curve, but it's due to that, obviously very, very powerful.
Yeah. Super powerful. Awesome. Yeah. Well, hey, Daniel had a question. Before I read the question, Daniel, I did see your comment about don't skip leg day. All right. So it's not always chest and upper body, right? So good to go. All right. So Daniel says that he's heard the Viprion blade CPU architecture is inferior to the I-series when it comes to SSL Orchestrator. Is it problematic on Viprion VCMP running on 2250 blades? So, or maybe instead of saying is it problematic, we'll say maybe there are better opportunities, with another blade or whatever. So anyway.
Yeah. So SSL Orchestrator is very similar to Advanced WAF in the sense that it's a CPU driven tool. So it's really not touching the SSL chips the way you might expect it to. It's really more about the actual service chaining, what's happening under the hood past encryption. So really all you're looking at when you're looking at throughput of a particular platform for SSL Orchestrator is the amount of CPU. And there's really no indication that Viprion blades and chassis are any more or less efficient than our appliances. Yeah, it's all the same software, just running on different CPUs and different form factors. The VE, the virtual edition, the VCMP, and all the other ones, they'll do exactly the same thing as any appliance model will do, just with more or less throughput.
Cool. Well, so Daniel, hopefully that answers that question. It's a great answer. And like we always do sometimes, you hear certain things. Hey, I heard that, Viprion is inferior or whatever. And it's like, well, that's why we come to Kevin Stewart. That's why we have, the man himself answer the question. So you've heard it from the source. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
All right. So now that we've kind of talked about an overview of what it is and what it supports and all that, can you go through some use cases for SSLO?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I'm gonna get that out of my mouth. SSLO.
SSL. Oh,
yeah.
That's how I like to say it.
So there's a ton of use cases, and again, this I keep coming back to the proxy architecture because there's just a ton of flexibility here, right? So we're talking about the product started off as an outbound forward proxy solution, and then we migrated to support the inbound as well. So I would say the vast majority of our customers are still doing outbound forward proxy, either in a transparent routed hop or layer 3, or sometimes in a layer 2. We're starting to see quite a bit more of the inbound topology use case. So that's you have existing applications that you want to attach a service chain to, or you're putting the SSL Orchestrator in kind of a gateway mode in front of your applications for inbound traffic. That's a common use case. Obviously, doing decryption and inspection for proxy devices is huge, right? There's really only one other vendor that can do that, and they only do that for their own product. So we're really product agnostic. We don't care as long as it falls within the TAP, ICAP, HTTP, L2, or proxy L2 and L3 scenario, right? Which is pretty much all these devices. So we will handle any proxy server great, better usually than they handle traffic themselves. Common use cases like Office 365 tenant restrictions or just dynamic URL feeds. We see a lot of customers doing that. pushing tenant restrictions headers out, for exfiltration protection, or doing categorization based on the O365 URL data feed, that we will constantly call that data set just to make sure it's fresh. That's just the list could just go on and on. There's another really cool thing that I would mention here because it probably comes up is like, what about iRules, right? This is like anything else, AFM and APM and ASM, they all have access to iRules, and SSLO is really, SSL Orchestrator is really no different. It has a unique use case though, in that there's multiple insertion points for iRules, right? So the product used to be iRule driven. It's now just like a fully baked thing. But now you can take an iRule and you can insert it either globally as traffic is like passing through the box, or you can actually insert an iRule strategically, like at a service point. So as traffic is flowing into a secure web gateway, or as traffic is flowing into a FireEye or whatever, or out of a FireEye, and you can attack traffic right there. You could send it off to a SIM, pull headers out, do content inspection right there. Very, very cool capability. And you can add features, like we have customers that will, insert headers, for additional analysis, stuff that's coming off the wire that wouldn't otherwise be seen by the device. They can insert those headers so the device has additional context on the traffic.
That's really cool.
Yeah, that's super cool. That's super cool. And I got to say this too really quick, Kevin. I'm pretty sure it's your signature block on your email. It says something about there's an iRule for that. You can do anything with an iRule. Is that right? And so iRules are certainly there in SSL Orchestrator. That's awesome. It's good
Absolutely.
to know.
Yeah. So, you mentioned, SWG or ASM being in service chain, from a just nuts and bolts deployment perspective. So SSL Orchestrator is going to orchestrate those services. Those services can also be F5 devices, right?
Totally.
You can pass through your service chain to an ASM policy for inbound stuff, or SWG for outbound stuff.
Yeah, so all of those are possible today. IPS as a service, Secure Web Gateway as a service, ASM as a service, WAF as a service. What we haven't done yet is we haven't added the icons, the tiles into the service catalog. Actually pull up slide 3. I'll just show you real quick. So inside of the SSL Orchestrator workflow, we have this thing called a service catalog, and we have, we've gone through and we've looked at all these different products, and it's, there's some generic ICAP and L2 and L3 tiles here that, give you this, the generic settings for all these, these types of devices. But then for these other security products, we've gone through, to make sure that, that a Digital Guardian or a Squid Clam AV or just a Trend Micro or whatever will work, to its fullest inside this thing. And so we build this into an SSL Orchestrator ecosystem, and this thing continues to evolve as we learn more and we get more integrations with specific vendors like Cisco and FireEye, to build tighter and smarter integration points, and those get buried, built into those tiles. And so what we haven't done yet, and we're very quickly moving into version 9, coming up pretty soon, is going to have a tile for SWG as a service, and then quickly after that we'll have WAF as a service, and then quickly after that we'll have IPS as a service. That just makes it easy to do because there's a tile there, but it's already very easy to do without the tile.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I love it. Yeah. Well, good stuff, man.
So all these services that you're mentioning, are these all services that would be in your local data center, or could these be cloud services?
They're typically on-prem devices. They're appliances usually, Blue Coats and Cisco WSAs and whatever. But they could be running in a cloud somewhere. Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, good stuff. Yeah, it's good to know that the ecosystem is out there and growing. And so we'll just continue to add and refine that as we, like you said, as we continue to partner with companies and all the rest. Well, hey, one quick question that Pasilva had. Well, yeah, right up there. Sorry. So Pasilva said, what TLS versions are supported? I know we're looking at TLS 1.3, and then of course the previous 1.1, 1.2, all that. So what do you think?
The answer is all of them. Yeah. So we've supported full proxy TLS 1.3 since version 7. Version 6 had reverse proxy. Version 7 had forward and reverse proxy.
Okay.
So it's full RFC TLS 1.3 compliance. The cool thing though is that you can do full proxy TLS 1.3 all the way through with decryption and inspection, but you can also, because it's a proxy again, you can actually control the ciphers on both sides. So I could do 1.3 on one side and 1.2 on the other side, or vice versa. We have customers that will have like east-west traffic that have legacy servers on one side. They can only do SSL 3, whatever, but they still need to get to servers on the other side that require 1.2 and advanced ciphers. And so we can actually control that and allow those things to happen through SSLO, which is a very difficult thing to do when you're talking about like a layer 2 or a half proxy solution where they're not really in control of the cipher selection.
Yeah, that would be super hard to do. And that's a super cool thing. First of all, if someone's running SSL v3, they're kind of way back in the day, right? But I mean, my goodness, if they're running SSL v3 and then you can give them TLS 1.3 on the other side kind of a thing, and that's super powerful. Yeah. That's awesome, man. That's awesome.
So Daniel asked to follow up. Did I hear that the decryption is all done in CPU? I thought F5 appliances had dedicated decrypt hardware for decryption.
SSL Orchestrator, the SSL Orchestrator functions are in software, but the CPU, the decryption is still in chips. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
So and that's what I was thinking, is like the orchestration process, not the decryption, is the part that's CPU driven.
Yeah.
And then we had a question, also a follow-up from Doge. Is there some plan to run SSLO setup in Ansible modules or AS3?
Absolutely. There is an Ansible module that is in work right now. There's an API or a declarative API already built for BigIQ for SSL Orchestrator. So you can use BigIQ as essentially an API shim for SSL Orchestrator in the near term, and then in a few versions from now we'll have a full declarative API, not AS3 but more cloud API, open API specific for BigIP proper.
Okay. Super cool.
Yep.
Awesome, man. Yeah, and Daniel said thanks for clearing that up on the CPU, the custom hardware for decryption and all that. So still rocking and rolling on all that stuff, right?
Oh yeah. All right. So I had another question. We talk a lot about HTTP. Does SSL Orchestrator support other protocols?
That's actually a good question, and we hear that a lot. There's a lot of assumption, maybe some FUD going around that it's an HTTP only product, but it's absolutely not true. It is essentially effective for any TLS wrap TCP protocol for decryption. There are some differences between what we call opportunistic and non-opportunistic. That's a hard word to say. TLS, you think about opportunistic traffic. TLS is like start TLS and FTPS and things like that, where the server speaks first. Most of the traffic for client speaks first, like LDAP and SIP and HTTP and some versions of IMAP and POP and SMTP. We're completely agnostic as long as it's TLS wrapped. We can strip it off and show the L7 traffic underneath it. And then we also have additional listeners, port-specific listeners for opportunistic traffic. So start TLS, IMAP, POP L3, POP3 IMAP, SMTP plus FTP plus a bunch of other ones. We are actually working on TLS inspection or DTLS inspection for UDP. And then HTTP3, which is the old Quick, is also coming soon.
Okay,
nice.
Yeah, that's going to be an interesting transition for the industry, I think, because we've been TCP for the duration of 26 years since Gore invented the internet. 27, something.
Yeah,
like that.
When did Al Gore do his thing? So, yeah, that's right. It's been a couple of minutes.
Yeah.
It's been a couple of minutes.
And so that's a lot of industry expertise to carry forward into something completely new.
Yeah.
I kind of akin it to me for me personally, IPv4 to IPv6, because it's like I've been IPv4 since the very beginning, and I still don't really have a great handle on IPv6 because I just don't touch it a whole lot.
Yeah, it's fascinating. That's another one of those, hey, for everyone, don't ever stop learning, because if you're like, hey, I got TCP down or whatever, then here comes HTTP3, quick and all that. It's like, wait a minute. Anyway,
Right.
yeah, that's a totally different conversation. Well, good stuff.
Well, before we let you go, Kevin, thank you so much for coming to share the awesomeness that is SSL Orchestrator. But SSL Orchestrator or otherwise, what's like the most mind-bending SSL solution that you've been a part of, or you walked into an ask from a customer, or just something that was you were noodling on and you thought, I don't think I can actually do this, and after tweaking and tuning and pulling hair, you're like, holy crap, this actually worked.
Man, I don't think I have enough time for that question. I mean, just the magic of iRules and just the flexibility. There's just so many things that we can do. We have customers that want to do like a GRE tunnel to Zscaler, and then do that dynamically based on, URL category matches or whatever. We had a customer that had to do an IP6 to 4 translation for traffic to get the Zscaler to a specific Zscaler environment that only supported v4, but their clients could do v6, which was kind of weird. And so we had to do a v6 to v4 translation with DNS in the middle to actually make that work. And that was just a set of iRules. Somebody actually just recently, we use a sideband call. You guys know what a sideband call is, right? We use sideband calls in an iRule to reach out to McAfee Web Gateway API to basically call their subscription service. Instead of using the URL filtering subscription on the F5, the traffic comes into explicit proxy. We do a sideband call out with an iRule to McAfee Web Gateway and say, hey, does this SNI need to be decrypted? And it says yes, and we decrypt it, or we don't. We bypass it, and we use their feed instead of ours. Okay. Yeah, so there's tons of stuff you can do.
Yeah.
It's just like your signature block on your email. There's an iRule for that. You can do anything with an iRule. Yeah. You could probably grow some tomatoes in a garden with an iRule, right?
You probably could. If it wasn't for iRules, my signature would probably be there's VIP targeting can solve all problems.
VIP targeting.
VIP targeting is amazing. I've used it for many, many things.
Yeah, solve world hunger and all the rest of the things. All the things.
Yep.
Beautiful.
All the things.
Well, all right, stuff, Kevin. Man. Well, man, thanks for coming on, and thanks for the way that you invest in community and all the great work you're doing with the SSLO team.
Yeah, man.
It's been a pleasure. Yeah. All right. Thanks so much, Kevin.
Appreciate it.
Awesome, man.
And now we got a few minutes left in the show, right. And we've got some industry stuff to talk about. So let's get on it.
Let's get right to it. Alrighty, so we probably take that little banner off now too. So
forgot to take.
No, it's all good. Off. It's all good.
Production fail.
Well, okay. So Jason, what's up with TikTok right now, man? They're doing some stuff, and they're in the news lately. President Trump wants to say, "Hey, you got to shut her down." That whole thing. What's the big deal?
Yeah, so various different parties have been looking at the thing that is TikTok, and I've seen all the crazy viral videos of all these crazy dances. I do not participate because I cannot dance at all, even a little.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of concern about the levels of data that the TikTok app in particular is going after from a device perspective, from a user profile perspective, and then some speculation is that it's not only collecting data on your device and you, but also probing the clip tray for anything that you're copying to move between apps. So maybe you're copying something from a password manager and copying it from there over into your banking app. And so obviously that's pretty concerning. and so that's what all the hubbub in the industry is about.
Yeah.
And so there's concern there, and there's been a lot of different people taking a look at TikTok, and then there was an article we had a little while ago. I think that's the one you've got up on your desktop. But
yeah, it's talking about TikTok. It's kind of like ET, the extraterrestrial. He wants to phone home, and TikTok wants to phone home. There was this one researcher that started to kind of break down, the inner workings of TikTok. And this one guy actually worked at a company, and there was a company policy that said, hey, users on this company, devices or whatever, cannot have TikTok. Well, you need to take it off because, all that stuff, right? You don't want to be TikToking at work and all the rest. So this administrator was like, hey, all right, how do I remove that? How do I just shut it down? And man, he ran into all kinds of issues in terms of just, hey, I'm going to shut down what I think is kind of the main artery into TikTok. And as soon as he shuts that down, then boom, other ones start popping up. And he's like, it's like whack-a-mole. I can't get this thing all the way shut down. He did finally get it shut down, but I mean, it was crazy, all the different domain names that were in play here, and all the ways that it tries to kind of self-heal, and you shut this one down, it pops up over here, kind of a thing.
Yeah, there was a movie in the 70s called The Thing, and it's like it was a horror movie, and this thing would, they cut its head off, and then it would the head would turn on its side and grow legs and then start heading off. And I kind of feel like apps like that, it's like, good gracious, you want to just be able to manage your firewall and block a few things, but it's like you said, it's whack-a-mole to make that happen.
Yeah.
And Praveen, TikTok already banned in India. That's interesting. I did not
know that either. Well, it looks like the United States is kind of starting to follow suit a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's it's an interesting thing with, I was talking to my daughter the other day, who is into all these different things. It's ridiculous. But she loves all the little apps and whatever. And in fact, I think we were talking about 5G actually in this case, because there's different, theories about 5G, and is it harmful, and is it all different kinds of stuff. But I was telling her some of those things, like, hey, there may be some drawbacks to 5G. So this is not really TikTok specific, but kind of in the same idea. And I was like, hey, here's some drawbacks, whatever. And then she's like, okay, well, then what's up with 5G? And I said, well, you could actually download a complete 4K movie in 3 seconds. And she was like, oh my gosh, give it to me now. I must have the speed on my phone immediately. I do not care about anything else. I don't care if there's any kind of security issue. I must have the speed. And it's the same way with TikTok. People want the little video, and they got to learn the TikTok dance or whatever. And who cares about security? I mean, most adolescents, most teenagers today just do not care about that stuff. But it's, that's the world we live in, I guess, right? So it's good to kind of know, hey, these apps that may seem, I don't know, they may seem innocent enough on the surface, or are getting kind of crazy. So good times, man. Yeah. So TikTok, it's in the news. It's trying to call back home, to the mothership, when you try to shut this thing down.
Yeah. Can you shoot me the link of that in
of course. Yeah. We'll just right here on the spot, man.
We will do this live, because we are live, and we can make things happen.
We can make it happen. It was a link.
We're doing LinkedIn for you.
It was a LinkedIn article actually that this guy had. So we're gonna pop it up right here. Good stuff.
Boom. There you go.
Another thing that was mentioned in this article were all of the details about the phone that TikTok is installed on, the operating system, the user profiles, the geolocation, it was a massive amount of data that they're collecting on you, the end user that is running TikTok. So
parameters I didn't even know existed, and you're looking through that. But on the flip side, there's another link that came out a couple days ago on Medium. They had a researcher look at it. I'm going to drop that in comments too. And he was looking through TikTok and kind of reverse engineering the app and all that. And at the end of the day, he said, well, yeah, they're collecting a whole lot of data, and that's not good, but it's really no more sinister than pretty much everybody else.
It's not abnormal compared to the others.
It's not an abnormal amount of sinister behavior.
And I think that's a good perspective to have. Is it's like, hey, okay, so it's the same as, I don't know, whatever.
Yeah.
Facebook I don't even want to call out the others because I don't know exactly what everybody collects, but I mean, at some point you have to personally say, hey, all right, if this may not be different than the other app, but it's still beyond my, comfort level personally, right?
Yeah.
So it's good to know what they're doing.
Well, and I don't know if it's still out on Netflix, but there was a show called Terms and Conditions, and it was a documentary about an hour and a half, 2 hours long, something like that. But it kind of went into that when you connect all these different apps, whether it's a desktop app or a mobile app, everybody just kind of flies through that acceptance of the terms and conditions. But at the end of the day, you are the product. It's the platform there is there for you to enjoy, but you're the product, and they're coming after your data because that's how they're making money. That's why they don't need to charge you anything, because none of this stuff is cheap. I mean, you think about the cost for Facebook or Google or any of these people to build these server farms, to write the software, to do all these things. None of that's cheap, and so there's a cost somewhere, and somebody's paying it, and you may not pay for it in your wallet at the time that you're logging onto these services, but you're the product, your data is being shared, and ultimately you're paying for it somehow.
Ultimately you will spend money in some way, shape, or form, maybe not directly through the TikTok app, let's say, but when they learn all these different behaviors and whatever, and then you get marketed to, and then you're like, hey, I got to buy that new thing. It's like, well, that ties back to all the tracking that happens. So, ultimately you're being targeted, one way, shape, or form. So, it's crazy stuff, man.
Yeah, and in that documentary, they said that the intelligence agencies, they said Google and social media is like the best thing that's ever happened to us.
Yeah,
because they don't really have to do much in order to really collect intel.
Well, you don't even. I guess you do collect it, but you collect it from a user that is just absolutely willing to just give it all away, right? So you don't even have to coerce anything really. It's very interesting. Yeah. I know. Yeah, Priscilla just had a little great comment there. What's the value of your personal information? And that's a great.
That's even a misnomer anymore. There is no personal information.
Yeah, exactly. Trick question.
Like, be a decent person, because if you're not, the world's going to know about it.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah. But man, those terms and conditions, really quick, they could put whatever they want in there. They could put the whole War and Peace novel in that thing, and people would just be like, man, get me to the end of this thing, and fine, let me hit accept. And and you're kind of stuck. It's a little bit of a kind of a catch-22 in the sense that, hey, I want to use my device,
right,
and I read all these things, or frankly, we don't read all the terms and conditions. But if I don't hit accept, then I don't use the device.
Exactly.
So you're forced to, in the sense that, hey, you're going to want to use your cell phone or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So
one of the other interesting things in the documentary, and that I'll talk about, I don't want to rabbit hole too long on this terms and conditions, but the other part, specifically with intelligence gathering, is the things that you Google, and one of the stories they told was this Hollywood writer who wrote for like one of those CSI type shows, and you see those shows, and it's like, okay, how do I bury a body in in a mall parking lot, and
right.
And so he's Googling all these kinds of how do I clean up from this? So his Google search history looks like he's about to commit murder, because in his fictitious world of writing, he's
trying to write the script of this show, right?
But right in the middle of his search terms, he's like Googling like nearest meatball sandwich, and so he actually was when they did a data dump of these searches, people are like, oh my gosh, we need to like get this back to source and figure out what happened here, and like cross-reference like dead bodies and all this. But anyway, the guy who actually did that, it's like, oh, that was me. But then there's a guy in New York who was responding. He's a comedian, and he was responding to something in a inappropriate but comedic way on Twitter, and he had SWAT like knocking his door down like an hour and a half later. And you're like, so
Goodness.
Be careful out there, guys, with the stuff that you share.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. It's somebody's watching. Yeah, I mean, I've often thought, hey, I mean, you want to protect your personal information. It's kind of like what Pasilva just said. What's the value of that? But at the end of it, I think all of us need to understand that a large portion, if not all, of your personal information has probably been stolen, probably is known out there. And so I think it's good. It's just good to understand that that's the reality of the world that we live in. And so, live your life in such a way that you understand that someone else has your information. And so you need to do other checks. Like, hey, if I knew someone else had my bank account, for example, then what would I do? And I knew I couldn't go and like take it away from them or pull back access. So I'm going to go like check my account every day. I'm going to make sure that nothing's coming out weird or whatever, right? I'm going to just keep good eyes on that. So it's going to be stuff like that, in terms of how we live in a world that, where our information is just shared with everybody, whether you want it to be or not. Crazy place, man. Crazy place we live.
It is. Yeah. Like, and with specifically banking, it's like any expense above a certain value, I get a text. Just says, okay, yeah, that's legit. That was us. Yeah. I block my cards when I'm not in a store using them so that nobody can go swipe them because they, duplicated it and manufactured it in their own little, VW bug from 1973. And,
they got the bug sitting in the parking lot, creating
skimming cards and think about Creed in the office, it's like that. That'd totally be his jam today.
That's right. So. That's right. Love it. Well, good stuff, man. Yeah. So TikTok, it's a crazy place to be. The kids love it, so I guess the adults love it too. What's not to love? Well, I'll tell you what's not to love. It's going to steal all your information. No, I'm just kidding. So good deal. All right, man. Well, hey, I know we're at the hour right now, so these things always go by pretty quick, and it's always a joy to interact with everyone and connect with everyone and answer questions and talk about life together, right? That's what we do here on DevCentral Connects. So yeah, man, it was great to have Kevin here today. He's like a giant in the DevCentral community. We talk about we're standing on the shoulders of giants, and he's one of those broad shoulders that we're all standing on.
Yep.
So yeah, appreciate his willingness to be here. Well, good to go, man. Well, so next week, Jason, right? You've got the you want answers.
I've got some answers. Yeah. So
all of you, if you want answers, you come next week. Jason's going to have the You Want Answers show.
That's right.
So next Thursday, 12:30 Pacific, and it should be a great time. So
it'll be
good to go, man.
And 2 weeks from today, we'll be back here together.
That's right. That's right. Another DevCentral Connects. Yeah. And so it should be a lot of fun. So stay tuned out there. We'll have on social media, the different topics and showcase what we'll have. And so we look forward to connecting with everyone 2 weeks from today on DevCentral Connects. 1 week from today, Jason will be here with the You Want Answers show. So from us to all of you out there in the DevCentral community, we say thank you for being the community that you are. And for joining us today, for connecting with us. We appreciate you. We wouldn't be DevCentral without you. So thanks for everything you do, and thanks for connecting with us today.
Take care, everyone.